Chandrajit, for all your warm comments. Thank you, Narayan. All the distinguished captains of industry from the chemicals and petrochemical sector, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. Truly delighted to be amongst you, albeit a little bit late, but we are working against too many global issues right now, which tend to often not have a time limit. Of course, the theme today is very, very exciting, enabling competitiveness, India's pathway to global leadership. I don't think you could have given me a better subject to speak, because once I saw the subject, I quickly made my talking points for all of you. I don't know if you have realized today is also Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam's birth anniversary. We celebrate it as World Students' Day. Our missile man changed the destiny of India, inspired generations to look at scientific discovery, focus on innovation, have a spirit of inquiry in our life, in our work. And there can be no better industry than your industry, which should be at the forefront of developing new technologies, making India a leader of cutting-edge solutions for the economy, for industry. And if we see great nations or developed, advanced nations are only made on the back of technology, on the back of innovation. If you look at the world economies, you will hardly find any economy which would have achieved greatness or achieved the position of becoming a developed or advanced nation until they focused serious capital and energies on innovation and science, on R&D. So much so that even the oil-rich nations today, Saudi Arabia, for example, more than they invest on Aramco, are now investing possibly on SABIC, recognizing that the future is all going to be value-added products with the thrust on clean energy, renewable energy, climate change. It has its ups and downs. There will be phases when the world will be super active. There may be phases where some major economies may not be focused on this subject. But that doesn't change the dynamics or the need of this fight against climate change. And we in India, of course, in recent times are suffering the consequences of climate change also, as are many other countries. And therefore, if we have to become an advanced nation, if we have to achieve greatness, if we have to make India Viksit Bharat by 2047, science, R&D, innovation, these will have to be the backbone of our working. Your sector, in my humble opinion, holds tremendous potential. I'm so glad that you've got Kearney to come out with this vision to power your industry to become a $1 trillion industry. I wish the year was also written here. I have it in my talking points, but I thought, but whether it should be 2040, whether it should be earlier, is a matter that I leave for all of you to reflect upon. If we are looking at a $35 trillion economy by 2047, clearly means by 2040 we'll be looking at least a $20 billion economy or a $18 trillion economy. Worst case, if we are not 18 trillion by 2040, Our aspiration to be a 35 or $32 trillion economy by 2047 is not happening. And 1 trillion on 18 trillion is what, 5.5%? Right? So that means you are looking at backward journey from 7% contribution to India's GDP today, as you claim. I don't. Sorry, next time you shouldn't be calling a chartered accountant to come and addressing engineers, right? And particularly chemical engineers at that. But just food for thought. Because in my humble opinion, one of our biggest challenges before the country is that we don't aim big enough. Our ambitions are not challenging us to do better. When Prime Minister Modi speaks of Viksit Bharat 2047, in a way he's challenging all of us to aspire for big targets, to aspire for greatness. The old status quo, the old way of working, the laissez-faire, chalta hai approach, that has to change. We cannot be satisfied when we report to in our AGM that we've had a 6% growth last year or 8% growth last year, even by saying we had a 10% growth, because we all know that that is all nominal growth. When we discount, when we report in our AGMs, we don't look at constant growth levels. And I seriously want all of you to reflect whether the petrochemical and chemical sector, which in a way has its tentacles in the entire manufacturing ecosystem. Nothing can be done without you. No auto sector, no Bharat Mandapam, no carpets, no nothing. I mean, I'm sure this must also, these mics also would have a chemical into the plastic or whatever, polyurethane or whatever has gone into making this mic system. This furniture cannot be made without glue. Directly, indirectly, you come into our lives all the way through. And therefore, your strategic contribution, your strategic role in nation building cannot ever be undermined, cannot ever be understated also. Agri, healthcare, infrastructure, construction, energy, I spoke about automobiles, mobility. You are omnipresent. And once that recognition dawns upon the entire industry, you will realize that ultimately we will also have to assess where our strengths lie. Every country always cannot do everything. Michael Porter's old theory, the comparative advantage of nations, will matter. We will have to start looking at our areas of strength where we can beat the competition, where we can try to aspire to become global leaders, where we can move out of that small contribution of 3-4% of exports, global exports from India, to try and see whether we can have a dominant position in international trade. Can we be 20% plus in 20 items at least of global trade? If you are looking at greatness, there will always be champion sectors. And then there may be certain things where it doesn't matter even if we import it, where we are not competitively going to be advantageous. After all, import duties or barriers to import, in some products where you're looking at supply chain resilience, or you want to be sure you're not at the mercy of some monopolistic supplier or monopolistic country, and you'll appreciate what I'm trying to allude to. We certainly don't want to be left at the mercy of one geography or even one or two geographies on any item in our supply chains, which can cripple our entire sector. We will need diversified sources. There may be items where we need solid protection, and we need to have that domestic value chain in sufficient quantity to make sure our entire sector does not become vulnerable. But that can be a few items. By and large, we will have to integrate with global economies, particularly if you want to become an advanced economy yourself. That's why, if you will see, under Prime Minister Modi in the last 6 years, or in the last 11 years, and particularly the 6 years that I have been holding the Commerce and Industry Ministry, he has guided us totally to focus on advanced economies to expand our global trade footprint. We will continue to export all over the world. We'll continue to look at every market. But our focus when we do, let's say, for free trade agreements, where has that focus been? The first one he did was Mauritius. I think we don't compete with them on anything. They complement us. And they have an $18,000 per capita income. Second was UAE. Again, a country where, other than dates, I don't think we need to be threatened by anything. It's another matter that your industry sometimes demonstrates so much weakness that even giving a minor quota of 1 or 2, 3% of our consumption in India, you all make a big fuss and hue and cry about it. And I feel very disappointed when that happens. It shows you in very poor light. It shows weakness. When I try to understand how will 2 or 3% imports hurt 100% of your domestic market demand or pricing, I'm given very ridiculous responses. And ultimately, when we have to do FTAs, we will need support from all sectors. It cannot be that we want open markets everywhere, but our industry leave out when you open up the Indian market. That can't work. थाली तो दो हाथ से ही बचेगी ना, दो तरफा व्यापार होता है. Then we did Australia, another advanced country. Then we did the 4-nation EFTA bloc. Tell me, if any of these countries, anything which can hurt us, what will come from there which can hurt our economy? From Liechtenstein, anything? Norway, Iceland, Switzerland? Whatever we can get, we'll probably need it. Machineries, high quality innovation stuff. We can probably attract the pharma industry to come here in a big way. They may have some innovations in your sectors which could be useful to collaborate, because they have a commitment to invest $100 billion FDI, not into the stock market, friends. वो तो Norwegian pension fund एक साल में ही डाल देगा $100 billion. We're talking of FDI, solid manufacturing, innovation, technology-based money, and then of course some service sector to the extent it can absorb it. Then UK, whom are we talking to now? UK, of course, probably the deepest FTA in the widest span so far, and comparable $4 trillion economy, and a reasonably open market, unlike Japan or Korea, which we have FTAs, but it's a highly nationalistic spirit there. They really don't open their market to our products. Not by government edict or government law. Industry supports each other, something which I keep pleading in India, but don't get much traction. So if two of you were to be customer and supplier, and even if it was slightly costlier to buy locally than buying from abroad, sadly, we will prefer to import. वो स्वदेशी भावना जगने को अभी भी समय है. And that really is the need of the hour. We need to support each other. We need to recognize that today an imported product may look very attractive. But at a marginal level, the impact is at oftentimes very small. But tomorrow, if we persistently continue to be dependent on imports, domestic investments will fall, domestic industry will suffer and maybe even close down. And once they have the industry, domestic industry down, then they can charge you an arm and a leg and you won't have a choice. And which is why we need to start looking at supporting each other in our value chains. Unless, as I said earlier, the competitive pricing or the comparative advantage just totally does not support the Indian industry. And we have wide enough suppliers in the world so that it will not cause us a supply chain risk in the future. So this is what policymakers today really need to learn lessons from today's global trade situation. And if today also we don't learn these lessons, then I can assure you, some of you, maybe 3-4 years down the road in the next 10th or 12th edition of ICPC that I come for, maybe non-existent. And that will be your own doing. I won't name the industry. There was a particular industry which was not buying a product which was available in India from the MSME sector. So there were some 50-60 MSME units making a product, but the industry preferred to import it for some small saving maybe. It's a product which has no quality implication, just literally goes into a furnace. But they preferred to import. I kept pleading, allow me to put some restrictions on import. There's a lot of resistance. They didn't allow me to do that. And I have to balance users, industry, I have to balance the whole chain. 6-8 महीने निकल गए, मैं कुछ कर नहीं पाया. पर भगवान है ऊपर. We all believe in destiny and fate and God. At least I do. And then the shoe pinched on the other side. The user industry got into trouble. And then they came for protection. I said, भाई उनको प्रोटेक्शन चाहिए थी तब तो आपने बड़ा रेजिस्ट किया. आपके भी जरूर कोई कस्टमर्स हैं, उनको तकलीफ क्यों दूं मैं? Why should I protect you? And in 24 hours I got a letter, please protect the original sufferers. जिन्होंने, and half of them are almost on the verge of closure, some may have even gone into bankruptcy. So I also didn't take action for 6 months. They may have saved maybe 1,000 crores in 6-8 months. But they have landed up losing 10,000 crores. Because at the opportune time, they were not willing to support their supplier. Just for a petty, small benefit. And there's an industry which should be 1,000 crores would not even be a point some percentage of their procurement. Just sharing with you my angst at the industry's approach when it comes to the Swadeshi spirit, the Atmanirbhar spirit, self-reliance. Again, with the 2 caveats. Porter's theory of comparative or competitive advantage, but with an assurance that there is adequate supply, distributed adequate supply, so we are not at the mercy of any one country. Keeping that in mind, we will have to make ourselves competitive, we'll have to make ourselves efficient, we'll have to look at more and more trading arrangements with other countries so that other markets open for us. And while doing that, we will have to open some of our markets to others. Of course, if there's any surge in imports which hurts you, we are waiting for you to come and tell us. DGTR, the trade remedies today, are really taken up very, very fast. If you give data, it can be done in as little as 4 or 5 months. If you have a serious crisis, we can put a provisional protection for any of you. So anybody feels that you are being hurt by predatory pricing or a surge in import from any geography which is hurting your industry, or substandard quality goods are coming in at low prices, we are waiting for you to highlight it to us, and we'll take quick action. Similarly, any country has any non-tariff barriers which are hurting you in your export attempt, please tell us. Very often when I'm negotiating with other countries, I don't have enough in my hand to be able to negotiate and relieve you of non-tariff barriers that you may be facing in other countries. Unless you highlight all this to the Commerce or Industry Ministry, our hands are not strengthened in our negotiations. So therefore, if you want competitiveness and global leadership, our efficiency, our cost competitiveness will be important. But at the same time, our supporting each other will be equally important. Our being aware of any discrimination we are facing and highlighting it and fighting for it will be equally important. As we open up new markets or we open you to bigger competition, it should be fair trade on both sides. So, and ultimately remember, whatever you produce, as I said, goes to consumers in some form or the other. So ultimately, if I protect you or any sector with very high import duties, I am hurting the end consumer also. 140 crore consumers are suffering. So our job becomes a little bit of a delicate balancing of 140 crore consumers' interests. Then within each of your sectors, the various value chain participants. And at times, somebody may feel that, oh, we didn't get as much as we should have got or could have got. But I can assure you, it's not for want of our desire to support you. It would always be to try and bring a balance in the entire supply chain. But we are there to support you in any issues that are bothering your industry. From your side, I would urge you to be very vigilant against any dumping, any low cost, any predatory pricing issues in your industry. Some of you, I don't know whether any of you have had a chance to test us, but whoever has come to us with any such issue, I've always prioritized meeting them, getting them support, getting them relief, at times taking decisions within 24 hours to make sure that no sector suffers. Before I conclude, one last point in which I would seek your indulgence, for your own good, by the way, is areas where you think any of the laws need to be decriminalized for petty offenses or minor misdemeanor or mistake. Any processes, procedures that need to be simplified. Any compliance burden that needs to be removed or reduced. Any paperwork which you can recognize as unnecessary. You know, in Patents Act, we had one Form 27. Everybody was complaining to me that it's too cumbersome, but department insisted it's very important. Finally, I just asked one question. In the last 10 years, Show me how many times we have referred to Form 27 or data given by anybody in Form 27. What do you think was the answer? It's actually zero. But there was an importance of that form, but not the granular data that they were collecting. And because of that, people were not even taking patents in India because of all these inconveniences. We reduced it to one page, online, self-certification, no questions asked. And by the way, if you have not recognized or realized it as yet, most of you will know the most difficult two nations on earth on IPR were UK and Switzerland. If any of you has had to work with other countries, you will know. Working with UK and Switzerland, they were perpetually complaining against India's intellectual property rights and the protection given by India. And with both these countries, we have a robust IPR chapter in the FTA. If we could achieve that, you will appreciate something must be going right. And thus, friends, there's that rap song, अपना time आएगा, कुछ है ना ऐसा? I'll only amend that to say अपना time आ गया है. आपके हाथ में है कि उस समय को हम ग्रैब करेंगे, उस अपॉर्चुनिटी को हम कैश करेंगे, या जैसे कई बार होता है और कई देशों के साथ हो चुका है, कभी कभार एक बहती गंगा तेज गति से बढ़ते हुए व्यवस्थाएं भी कई बार किधर बीच में जाके अटक जाती है. Many countries have fallen into a middle income trap. Many companies which used to be darlings or blue-eyed boys of industry have fallen by the wayside, who didn't remain abreast with modernity, with innovation, with current changing dynamics. We will not let that happen to India for sure, that I can tell you. With the laser focus and vision that Prime Minister Modi brings to the country's progress, development and future, with his commitment for sustainable and inclusive growth so that we achieve our rightful place in the comity of nations, Bharat will not fail. And I hope to see all of you in that same spirit in Bharat's journey towards greatness. Thank you.